Welcome everyone to today's webinar. It is a Board of Directors overview. Excited to share this information with you. To get started, there are key topics that we're going to cover today. The first being the board role overview. Being a board member, while it's exciting, I know it is a volunteer position, but it comes with a great deal of responsibility. But you're not alone. I'm going to talk through this presentation regarding professionals that are here to assist you throughout your journey and assisting your association. We're going to cover a bit on community documents, their importance, and the legal aspects of how they represent what you need to do for your association. We'll cover board meetings, the importance of those board meetings, decision making that you will be doing for your association, and how you can utilize those partners in that decision making. We'll briefly touch on insurance, a financial overview just on the importance of the budgeting process and how that process works, talking about compliance, architectural control, and things like that, as well as touching on owner's responsibility and participation. Engaging your owners is key to the success of the association, not all lying on your shoulders. Now let's look at 12 months. Imagine that. That is the learning curve that board members go through. The benefit of having staggered terms assists you in that. If all board members are to roll over each year, you're losing that consistency and that importance, that institutional knowledge of the association, and it starts the process over every single year. So if your documents allow that staggered term, that's key that you adhere to that, and many do. Also, you want to ensure that you have great documentation on processes and put into place policies and procedures for the board of directors. That is key. Now let's talk a little bit about the personal legal touch as a board member. You are managing a multi-million-dollar business, not just the annual budget. You're also managing the common area and every aspect of the association, and that affects every single owner's property values throughout the community. When deciding how to conduct yourself, always think of how your actions would appear on the front page of the newspaper or before a judge in a courtroom. And I know that sounds drastic, but that is key. Think about every decision that you're doing is so important. And that's where we're going to cover some pieces of board decision making and topics here in just a moment. Now, you have a guidebook, and with that guidebook and laws that will assist you throughout the process. Your governing documents. Some call them covenants, some call them declarations, but these are recorded documents. This is your guidebook on how to work within your association. Bylaws specifically will spell out rules and items that particularly go for the board and how you manage your association. As a board, you'll be able to adopt and put in place rules and regulations to fine-tune the declaration items that spell it out, particularly as it comes to like design guidelines and things like that. Now, if you want to change how many board members are on the board and things like that, those are large items that are a huge change to the structure of the organization, and you would follow the process that is spelled out in your bylaws. And that generally is for a membership vote. But say in your rules and regs, you want to allow a little bit more expanding on guidelines regarding fence styles or in planting styles. Those are the type of things that you as a board will be able to change every year or as you need. But I will warn you, stay consistent. They don't need to change just to change, and keep that in mind. Always make sure that you have the documentation for your association in regards to resolutions. If the board decides on a process or a policy, make sure you're documenting it and there's a board resolution. We'll also talk about meetings shortly, but minutes, I cannot stress how important those are. You also have the setup of a survey or plat for your association. As a board of directors, if you do not have this information, research for that, reach out to your property manager to assist you as well. Knowing the guidelines of where the common area is, how it lays out, and how it abuts up to private property is very important, particularly if you have a major highway in front, knowing where those easement lines are. Also, the Georgia Nonprofit Code. Again, this is a business, so you want to rely back on and review the Georgia Nonprofit Code. You don't need to memorize it, but it is something as a board member you need to be familiar with and know exists and adhere to that. You're not a not-for-profit, you are a non-profit. And something that affects all of your decisions, and as the years go by, is case law. Case law will be developed, and it's generally when there have become issues or challenges and disputes. Be aware of those. We at Access Management can partner with you and ensure that you're up to date on any new and updating case laws that comes around in Georgia. Specifically here in Georgia, there are quite a lot of different cases that come up over the years, and we can refer back to those to assist you in any of your decision making. So let's talk about this legal entity, which you're the CEO of, and overviewing. An HOA is a non-profit corporation, and it's governed by the Georgia Property Owners Association Act, if you're applied to that, specifically the Georgia Nonprofit Corporate Code, as well as the Georgia Condominium Act if you are a condominium. It's key to know where you stand. If your governing documents in your association has been applied to the Georgia Property Owners Act, you need to know about that. You need to be aware because it has specific guidelines and structure that you would want to follow. And as a board, you need to follow the state law, your governing documents, and the fiduciary duties to your homeowners. That is key and important. You have a duty to them, and they have a duty to the association, which we'll cover shortly. A guide for the Georgia HOA board members, and I'm going to touch on some key points here. Speaking of legal, don't get scared. It's fine, but you do need to be aware of it. You have a big responsibility to your association and understanding when legal guidance is needed. Follow your documents. And when you get in an area where you question, reach out to the professionals. That's what they're there for. Your attorneys are there to guide you through any challenges that you may have and even answer questions to avoid any challenges in the future. Your role is protecting the association and yourself as board members. Choosing the right attorney for an HOA truly matters. Believe it or not all attorneys understand HOA law. Unfortunately, those that do not can cause some challenges. Using an attorney that's unfamiliar with HOA law can result in some serious issues. One being incorrect covenant enforcement. Guiding you in a direction or backing you in something that you think is correct and is improper truly can be costly in the end. Improper collection procedures. You do not want to start down a path again for collections or send letters that are going to come back and cause an issue for the board. Invalidate your board actions. You want to make sure that your board actions are true and in place. It's not easy being a board member, and the decisions that you make are important. You do not want to go through the time and effort to make decisions and then have them invalidated. Increased liability to the association as a whole, which then will spill over into your owners, or costly litigation down a pathway that you didn't want to or need to go down. Now, don't be afraid again. It's quite all right. Because as a board, you can put together the structure and framework and ways to avoid any issues and utilize your professionals in a way to help you get through that. So let's talk about those framework. The first is board meetings. That's the framework for you to do your duty. Here's some things that go in and make all of these connect and build. You have open meetings, allowing your owners to come in and see how the board acts and makes decisions. You'll have executive meetings where you're truly making strong decisions regarding financials, delinquencies, and keeping those two meetings separate allow efficiency and effectiveness. Come to every meeting prepared. Do the due diligence before. Again, I know it's a volunteer position, but doing the due diligence before means that the time that you're together in that meeting is quality time. You don't want to have a meeting that's 4 and 5 hours. You have a life and a family outside of this. So ensuring that you're prepared going in and utilizing your partner and your managing agent that works with you, that manager is your partner as well and can help prepare you for going into that meeting. The main thing is to be cordial, not only to each other as board members, but owners as well. If you're having a hearing, be respectful. Be respectful of each other's times as well. Look at your action items and know what is coming up and what can be moved forward. Document, document, document with minutes and notes and manager report. These are items that will help the board and the association continue to move forward effectively and successfully. Be constructive when you have disagreements. Just because there is a disagreement does not mean it's bad. Some of the greatest decisions come out of constructive and conversations. Stay focused in your meetings. Be informed and ensure that you're informing your owners of actions and ensure that you follow the proper notice throughout your communication to your owners. That's a successful functioning board. Now, let's say you have a broken line here, just like if you have a broken pipe somewhere, it is going to cause ineffectiveness and issues down the road. So let's talk about that. There are consequences of a poor framework. Decisions will not get made. If you attend a meeting, you haven't looked at the actions, you haven't looked at the management report, things that you had committed to be done have not been done, and that hasn't been prior committed or communicated, that becomes an issue. Decisions don't get made. And when decisions don't get made, things that need to happen within the association do not happen. Decisions can and will be challenged. Be prepared for that. Do not take it personal if another board member disagrees. Talk through that disagreement. Talk about the why a decision is being made, why a particular vendor is being utilized, why this challenge is there. Talk through that. Communication is so vital and key amongst board members and out to the membership. If decisions are not made, the community begins losing value. That will cause frustration and burnout. And let's face it again, you are volunteer members and you do not want that burnout. It is so hard to get people to step up for a board as it is today. And having someone committed to being a part of that structure is vital. Now let's talk a little bit about the decisions that you'll be making. Must read the material prior to the meeting to speed up proceedings. If you are just looking at the manager's report or just looking at the task at hand that needs to be decided or the bids, that's not effective for anyone because you're going to make decisions fast or improper, and that will not work for the association as a whole. Some might laugh at this, but no alcohol. Yes, I know sometimes board members are quite friends with each other and enjoy spending the time together, but this is a business meeting and it needs to be held as such. Of course, a glass of wine after, if the board wants to stay behind and do that, is perfectly fine. But in the business and meeting and move forward from there. Having alcohol during the meeting could open up for challenges down the road. And also, if you're going to the clubhouse, which many do, or in an area that all gather, we would like you to drive responsibly and govern responsibly. I know everyone is adults, but we wanted to share that because there has been cases where decisions made by the board were challenged when alcohol was served at the board meeting. Always obtain third-party opinions. Utilize your team behind you, your attorney, the engineer that did your reserve study. If you have questions about how you can financially do something, or if there's another option, please utilize those professionals. You're not expected to be an attorney or an engineer or even an accountant. So utilize those resources and professionals out there that do this day in and day out, including your manager. Ask questions from them. Here at Access, we have over 200 years of experience here, and we're quite proud of that. And we continue to grow, and we have education not only for our board members, but our managers. So these are professionals for you to help assist. That's on everything that you decide on and steps throughout. By insulating you by utilizing these professionals, it protects you and the association from lawsuits. Be consistent and fair on all of your decisions involving violations and collections. I know it's quite easy to say, well, that's my friend, and I know that they're going to get to that. I know they're going to mow their lawn. They've just been traveling a good bit. But if you are sending violation letters or your manager is sending them at your direction to those that have overgrown lawns, it needs to go to those also that you may be friends with, or even board members. Many of our managers do not even know where board members live for that very reason, to be consistent and fair. I actually, a few years back, attended an annual meeting and had an owner that stood up and was concerned about violation letters going out. And the board president stood up and said, you know what? I got that trash can violation too because I forgot to put my trash can out. So we're all right in here along the way doing what we need to do, and they're here to protect us. So keeping that consistency and fairness is critical in the board being respected, as well as avoiding any challenges down the road. Now, as it comes to collections, consistency and being fair is true, but you do have a fiduciary duty to ensure assessments are collected. You do have a right to, if an owner comes to you with a hardship issue, to set up a payment plan. That does not mean that every single owner gets a payment plan, but you can definitely offer that if there is a hardship, reasonable issue to allow them to make that payment. If someone chooses just not to make a payment just because they don't want to, that of course is not fair for the association to be encumbered by that. So being that fairness in all of the items and discussions and the decisions you make is going to be vital. Ask yourself, how would this appear on the front page of the newspaper? And I know we don't generally have newspapers like we used to, but think about that. Social media is rampant. Everyone wants to post opinion or decision out there. How would it appear if your association consistently was having social media posts about board decisions and being unfair or concerns, and someone was looking to buy in your neighborhood? So you want to make sure that the decisions that you made are consistent and fair, and that it can be pointed out that some were protected where others were hounded. If you can't explain it to the community, it's probably wrong. So think about that. If you can't give a reason and the why, then it might not be the right decision made. Only record action items in the minutes. Don't document discussions. It's not a transcript of your meeting. Many, many times, and we see it a lot when there is discrepancies or disputes against boards or actions where they call for the review of minutes and those can be subpoenaed in discovery. If you have word for word written down who said what, you're opening yourself up for quite a bit of concern. And talk to your attorney about that. There are several templates that we can share with you that are recorded action items. Board discussed landscaping bid. Board voted unanimously, or board majority vote of this particular vendor. That's all that's needed. You do not need to have the transcript of Jane spoke about how she didn't like the person that was showing up to do the landscaping on this property, or she heard this. Those type of discussions do not need to be in the minutes. And we do suggest and encourage, please keep it professional in your discussions. You can definitely bring out any concerns that you have, but remember it is a business meeting. When taking the minutes, consider how they would read in court. Is there going to be a perception, and perception is general reality, that a decision by the board was made because of a friend or against someone because there was a personal issue? Impartial professional secretary to record the minutes. Again, keeping it emotions out and business on the table, decisions only. It's not a flip of a coin, yes or no on decisions. As board members, you definitely need to ensure that you have discussion and lean to your professionals, your manager, your attorney as needed to guide in those decisions. One key aspect I want to also share is please do not use your work emails for any communication. There are times in discovery where if a board member has utilized their own personal work laptop or computer, that it has been picked up from the business and taken in discovery. I have seen that happen, and do not open yourself up that. Keep business for the association separate from even your personal and your work emails. So let's talk a little bit more about the meeting itself. As I mentioned earlier, limit your meetings. 1 hour max is great. 2 hour max is great. If you're going 3 and 4 hours in your meeting, I would go back and look and see how much got accomplished and what put it off task. Generally, after 2 hours, everyone is exhausted. Your meetings are also generally in the evenings, and you've worked all day, you have family obligations, so you want to make it as effective as possible. Being prepared and making decisions at the meeting will help streamline that to be an hour max or 2 hour max. Consider meeting during the normal business hours. I know everyone takes a lunch hour generally, so that 12 to 1 works really well. We've seen a lot of board members start doing meetings from 9 to 10 in the morning or 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning and getting the business at hand taken care of. So consider that if that's an option for all of your board members. You want to make sure that all board members are able to be there so that you have a majority and you can run effectively. All your agenda topics must relate to your primary duty to maintain and enhance the value, not just the monetary worth of the community. You're doing the planning and decision making to continue the association moving forward. And this involves, talking about events that you want to have for the association, talking about committees that you want to put in place or decisions by those committees. But make sure it has to do with that business at hand for the association, not topics regarding what happened in the neighborhood at the neighborhood party, unless it affected common area. Those are topics and discussions that will take you off track, and it's not using your time as a board member effectively. Any topic for discussion must be listed on the agenda prior to the meeting, and nothing is added without the approval of the board. If a topic is brought up at the meeting, it can be tabled for the next meeting and discussion can be had at the next meeting. This allows you being prepared coming in, addressing the topics at that meeting, and moving on. The key piece here is ask for discussion pieces or topics prior to the meeting for the agenda. Coordinate with your manager if there's specific bid information that you're wanting to review. Not the day before or the day of, because that's not going to be effective for anyone. So being prepared and having the topics listed, everyone coming into the room knows what is going to be discussed and being prepared to make a decision. Develop FAQs for items homeowners bring up in each meeting and refer the questionnaire to these so that you maintain control of the timed agenda. For instance, you have an open session and you ask for Q&A, and there's a lot of questions about where to find documents or how to do a particular process. We can utilize the eBlast system through Vantica and the document section of Vantica, and referring them to that will allow that they get the information, but also it does not take time away from the business at hand. And developing an FAQs, your manager would happily do that with you. It's great also for new owners and can be set to be sent out to your new owners through the Vantica portal. Optionally, direct all non-agenda items to be addressed at the end of the meeting. If there is a topic that is brought up that is going to need to go on the next agenda, you want to make sure that that is at the end of the meeting. An agenda is your roadmap for that meeting and your plan. If you get off of that agenda and go another direction, it's just like if you go off map when you're on a trip. You could get lost and items you would not be able to find, and you could miss some key items that need to be addressed. Allow any naysayers to prove or discredit themselves and require that they provide solutions to problems they raise. For instance, you're in a board meeting of 5 board meeting or members, and one of your members says, "Nope, I don't like that decision. Nope, I think that's the wrong thing to do." Instead of allowing that to control the meeting, turn that back and say, "All right, I would love to hear another solution that you have. Do you have any other ideas of how we can approach this?" And ensure that all members of the board that come into the meeting know that is the way the business will be handled. Will prepare everyone to make those all optional discussions. But if someone is there continually not participating and just raising a problem, your meeting will never have the decision making that it needs to. Constructive criticism calls for constructive solutions being proposed by that individual. And that needs to be set up in the beginning with your board. Also, highly recommend to have a timed agenda. This topic we're going to talk about for 10 minutes, this topic for 15. If you go short on time, great. If you go over a little bit, just know that that time will come from somewhere else. Always make sure that each board member has an opportunity to speak and give their decision. And in discussions, allow everyone to have a discussion part. If they do not want to participate, that's fine, but you need to make sure that you're allowing each individual board member to have a say or a position in discussion. Singling out as a board president and not allowing others to speak or to have any part of the discussion makes it a lone project for yourself, and that is not good. Each member of that board has a fiduciary responsibility and allow them to step up and be a part of that. It's not just a one-man show. There are also external interactions that you need to be mindful of. You want to issue meaningful written communication often to the community. Give them a heads up on how things are going. A simple e-blast could be sent out to the community. Hey, the board is talking about this topic, or we're looking at the next capital project coming up. We'll be meeting to talk about budget. Looking forward to our next event. Making sure that you're engaging your owners is vital for a board as they continue to grow the community. constantly educate your homeowners on HOA living. This is key as we have a lot of individuals that have never owned a home or been a part of an HOA moving into your community. Share tips and tricks on how the HOA is run. Have those open sessions of board meetings so they can see that the board of directors is there to help support and build the community, not against them individually. The FAQs that we talked about earlier is key also on how to make an architectural request or modification, how to engage the board, how to engage the property manager. Having that information out will help streamline and have a successful association. Canvass the community on occasion to track sentiment. Do surveys. They're simple and they're easy. Send it out to the community and get input if you're thinking about doing an event or if you're looking to make a change to a rule or regulation. That buy-in and that feedback from the community will ensure success in the end. If you don't ask the owners, then they will feel that they cannot be heard. Giving them opportunities to be heard in open sessions or through surveys is key. But if you do a survey, there has to be a follow-up action. An email can be sent out. Thank you, everyone who responded to this survey. We had a large feedback that everyone wants to have the chili cook-off again this year. So we will be having that this fall. Those type of things. Or we heard a lot of feedback on the survey about a pavilion update at the pool. We're going to be looking into that as a board and appreciate everybody's feedback. So if you ask, definitely acknowledge that you received responses. And always show a single front once an issue has been decided. It is very easy to go into the room and 4 out of 5 decide in one direction and one is just not on board. That happens. We're human and we all have different perspectives. But when you walk out of that room and to your membership, it needs to be the board decided this, not, well, the board decided this, but I was against it. Because what that will demonstrate to your association is that it's fractured on the board side. And that will build distrust and lack of confidence. And you don't want that. You're a unified front. You are always perceived as the board, even when outside of a meeting. Beware of what you say. I'll give you a case in regards to an association where a board member was at a social event. It was a little cocktail happy hour at a neighbor's house, and there was probably about 10 or 15 owners there. And one of the owners walked up to one of the board members and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about putting this style fence up. I know it's a little bit different, but doesn't it look great with my home?" And the board member made a comment, "Yes, that's actually really nice." The homeowner then went, installed that fence, which was against guidelines without approval. Through the process of letting them know, documentations, attorneys were involved, it actually made it to court. And the judge ruled that the board member, by saying what they did, was considered a board member no matter where they were in the association. And that was an approval, even though it didn't go through the document process. That's an actual case that happened. I've also seen issues where someone runs into someone at the grocery store, mentions something they want to do on their home. "Hey, I'm thinking about painting my house this color. I know it's a little bit different. Oh, that would be that's a pretty color." And that person taking that as approval. Don't open yourself up to that. If you're approached, and you will be at the grocery store, out walking the dogs, just say, "Great question," or "good information. You do have a process you need to follow. Please reach out to the manager or to Access and go through the portal for the documentation." That way it can be reviewed by all and we can get this a timely decision for you. Always defer back to the process and to the decision by the full board, not just an individual. Channel all your communications through a single point of contact. both from and to the board. The key is to utilize the portal and your manager in communication. If one particular board member is out walking their dog and continue to talk to people and help them with their issues and trying to solve things without bringing it to the board, it is going to disconnect the board role as well as issues may arise from this here. And if you're out walking your dog, playing with your kids on the playground, you don't want to be interrupted with business of the association. You are a person and you do have a role outside of a board of directors, and this is your home and your community as well. So set those boundaries and those lines. That is very important. Your sanity and your privacy is very important. And we all know you're paid not very highly for this. Now, I put together a little bit of a director's must-do list. And this is for new board members. And I also state anyone who has been on a board for some time to ensure that they also do this. Attend at least one collections hearing in court, if there is one, or be very, very diligent in reviewing the materials if there is a collection case with the attorney, so you know the process. Obtain a second opinion on your insurance coverages to ensure everything is really being covered. And ensure that your insurance is following the guidelines in your association. It will detail what the association's insurance should have as far as amounts and coverage. That's vital. Retain your vendors from year to year. Where we talked about consistency with the board, having consistency with your vendors is vital as well. If you change landscapers every single year, they're going to have that buildup of learning the community and understanding it. And so you're going to have a lapse of time. Same thing with the attorneys. Attempt to work through any issues that you have and rather than changing. And that doesn't mean hold on to a vendor who's not doing their job. Hold them accountable. And if they're not, you can make that change. But changing every year just to change is going to be a detriment to the association. You want to maintain an institutional memory and record and partnership with your vendors. Annual meetings are celebrations. Keep that in mind and use all your other meetings for any contentious topics or any discussions that you need to do. Now let's talk about board conduct. The good business judgment role, the care an ordinary prudent person in a like position would exercise under similar circumstances, is key to keep in mind. You have, as a board member, fiduciary duty to act in good faith for the benefit of the association. You have a duty of loyalty to place loyalty to the association above others, not your personal opinion. A duty of care to discharge the duties with diligence of a reasonable person. And you also have an additional duty for nonprofits, and that's a duty of obedience, faithful to the purpose and goals of the association. Association number 1. Some tools that we always recommend for boards is to have a code of ethics, and every year board members sign that. You all set the stage of how you are going to ensure that you adhere to your duty and your responsibilities. And you ensure that everyone is on the same page when things do not go as they should. So let's chat quickly about association insurance. There's several coverages. D&O, which is directors and officers coverage. There's property and general liability, fidelity coverage, and umbrella coverage. Be sure that as a board member, you understand what each of these are. We will also share information, ask your manager and your insurance agent if you have any questions. But one key one I would like to go in a little bit more detail is the directors and officers coverage. It's vital for the board of directors specifically. And why? There are several different ways and claims that have come out and hit the D&O coverage. If you're not adhering to your bylaws and the way the governing documents are written, you have an issue there. If you knowingly are doing that, if you give improper notice, there's challenges to assessments. If you improperly remove a board member that is not following the process in your governing documents, vote processes not following your governing documents, any special circumstances regarding approval of variances, not having that consistency, breaching your fiduciary duty, failure to maintain your common area. You are responsible to do that. An improper disbursement of funds, just to name a few. There are always board slip ups that have been documented, ignoring your governing regs, ignoring what they say, and doing just what you want to do. Failure to consult with professionals, making the decisions without really looking into utilizing your resources could open you up for an issue. Not staying aware of new law. Having emotions and personalities interfering in the day-to-day decisions that a board makes. And failure to memorialize decisions within the minutes and resolutions. You lose consistency, and it could open you up for a claim not to be covered. Here are a few other tips that we've seen where insurer may refuse to cover a cost. First and foremost, a director was not acting in official capacity for the alleged offense. A carrier not notified when certain time limit or failure to make timely notification when a claim has been established. If there is an issue or anyone threatens the association for legal action, you want to make sure that your insurance carrier, not only your attorney, is made aware. Improperly filling out an insurance application, any non-monetary claims or any harassment type claims. If the policy doesn't fully sever liability between the conduct of the different directors, that is, whether you're liable for your fraud behavior, make sure you're understanding the details of your coverage. Now, I'm quickly going to touch on budgeting process. We do have other classes and sessions that we'll offer in regards to budgeting tips and tricks, and your manager is a key person to partner along with you in the budget. Typically, the budget is primarily the responsibility of the treasurer, but all board members are responsible for approving the budget. Your manager is going to draft that proposed budget, looking at historical data and bringing information in for future capital projects potentially. We always recommend the reserve study and renewing that 3 to 4 years, depending on what upgrades you have had. If you have a finance committee, having them review and recommend any changes. Then the treasurer presents, along with the manager, the final version to the board for review. The board does approve it with or without any alterations. And then it becomes effective once disclosure period has passed. Make sure that you are notifying your owners of the budget being presented to them and giving an opportunity that they can disapprove it or approve. If your documents require for approval, ensure that you make that step happen. Not all associations have to have an official call vote, so make sure that you know what your association is required. Quick overview. It's your budget is your business plan. It's a financial document set for the association, and it's the map of your community governance. You're setting aside what services and programs for the community, when they're going to happen, and how they're going to happen. There are 4 areas of that budget. The income, that's the known and estimated sources of income to the association. Your property operating expenses, that's your regular daily operational expenses of the association, and those are generally handled by your manager. Asset expense is your reserve expenses. Are there any replacements coming up? And that falls into your capital projects. Look at that and plan what's coming up. What do we need to look at? Do we need to resurface the pool? Do we need to repave a certain area? Do we need to restripe? Those are capital projects that you want to ensure that you are aware of and prepared as you're looking at your budget. When you grab that budget and you're looking at financial items, You're going to have your financial reports, reserve study, any bids and estimates, and contracts, key tools and resources. Make sure that you're familiar with your board packet. This is key information that will help along with the budget, but every single month. These are sent out to the board by the manager. And if there's any questions, ensure that you're reaching out to them to talk to them about those questions. And look at these every single month. It keeps you in the know. One of the things, assessments are required by your governing documents. They must not be waived. They are an automatic statutory lien the moment a delinquency occurs. It's a duty to pay is independent of association obligations. We have so many that say we're not going to pay our dues because we didn't utilize the pool. That's not what it is. So you as homeowners, they have a duty to pay their assessments. I'll touch briefly on collections here. Be consistent and follow the policy like we talked about. Fair Debt Collections Act, know what it is, be familiar with it. Attorney fees are deterrence payments, but going to an attorney is not always the first step. Try and work with your owners. Legal fees are charged back to your delinquent owner. Any collection suit legal fees may be a special assessed to the entire association depending on the agreement with the attorney, so make sure you're aware of that. And foreclosure, it is an option, but please make sure that that is a last resort, not a first choice. Quick assessment, our collection tool, Sweeney versus Landings Association, a declaration permitted suspending an owner's privilege to use the common elements for up to 30 days. The owner refused to keep his dog on leash, and the board suspended his use of an electric gate pass. He had to stop at the entrance gate. Went to court. The court came back and it went up to Court of Appeals, and they ruled the suspending an owner's right to use the common elements was an acceptable sanction. Keep in mind of that. What tools and resources can you do other than going to legal and adding a legal fee? What are some rights? Blocking pool access, etc. Real quick on community regulations and governing documents. These are important in knowing what your documents say, read them and highlight them and know where to reference to them. Utilize your manager in any questions that you have. Put in place design guidelines and make sure they're updated and out to all memberships. These are truly important. As you're going through and setting up your community and you have review of documents and somebody wants to do a modification, make sure you're consistent and following what your design guidelines and your governing documents say. There's a particular case I wanted to share, White versus Comiskey, where the Court of Appeals overruled trial court that an owner's construction plans were automatically approved when the ACC did not contact the owner within the specified 30 days of the association's review time from the time that it was submitted. The ACC acted within 30 days after complete plans were submitted. The declaration spelled that 30-day period, and that means 30 days, not any day after. So therefore, they were allowing it to be approved because all had been received. Make sure that you are following that guideline and your committee is as well. Now we'll talk about homeowners, real quickly. They have an enforcement defense. If you fail to enforce any of the violations in the past, they have an argument. Arbitrary enforcement, they have a right to argue. Violation notice not recorded in land records against the owner, not documentation of any issues. Vague rules, make sure your rules are clear. Permitting violation involving money to occur or a period of time, for instance, putting on a deck of a house, allowing them to finish before stepping in. They have a right to challenge that. One director indicating approval, as I mentioned earlier, becomes almost a formal approval. Homeowners do have rights. They have access to documents, use of the common area, and enforcement of covenants. They have obligation to pay. They have their own homeowners insurance they're obligated to, and they have a right to vote and be active in the community. Your annual meeting is your celebration. Make sure that you're prepared. Where to start for your annual meeting? Make sure you plan, follow your notice requirements, and present information in an effective way to all the membership, and then archive it in the documents. For your plan, make sure you set the date, the location, and the time. Send out the packet of information as your documents dictate. Arrive early, be prepared, and celebrate. This is your opportunity to celebrate the successes as a board and the successes of the community. There are three key goals in an annual meeting. Establish a quorum, know your membership criteria, present your budget, that's current year and proposed, and conduct the voting, either for the budget and or your board of directors. By having control throughout these processes and as a board, you are effectively a well-oiled machine. Being strong and strong builds success. As you transition from one board to another, please make sure that you're archiving that information and allow for a transition process. It's not an immediate hand over a box of documents. Set up the new board members for success, and that's success for the community. Building community is something that we here at AMG are strong and want to encourage all association to do. Engage your owners and listen. Bring them together for events and activities. Engage volunteers to assist you as board members. Be transparent and welcome your new owners. Thank you again for being here today. We will now open it up to the Q&A. Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Heather. Thank you, everybody, for attending today's webinar on board roles and responsibilities. We appreciate your time. We do have a few questions that were presented earlier. The first one is, if one of the board members is sharing board-related discussions outside with community members, is it okay to do this?
Absolutely not. As a board, you are privy to certain information, and the discussions within a board meeting do not need to go outside of that meeting. It needs to stay within the board. That could be an issue or a challenge with your D&O insurance. And I would, as a board, call that board member along with all the others together and discuss it. And that's where a code of ethics being signed specifically would address that and allow you to get everyone on the same page.
Thank you, Heather. Next question, when do you need a board resolution, such as every decision, and how is this done/recorded?
I definitely say any decision that you're setting the standard or the practice for the association, you want to have a resolution in place that documents what the decision is and that it's archiving it for the association. Your attorney can help you with those resolutions. It does not require a resolution if you want to hire a vendor or do those type of day-to-day. But if you're going to put in a new process or a new way of, for instance, the board will be having meetings every third Thursday, and you want to do something like that, or set a standard for the association, you will need a resolution. Speak with your manager if you have any specific questions, but also your attorney, and they can give you a draft or a template to utilize that the secretary can archive with the minutes.
Thank you. This one's a pretty good question. What are the recommendations for the use of social media? Should the board post announcements, engage in discussions with residents, field questions, etc., or should board members be absent from social media?
Absolutely absent from social media. We strongly discourage any social media presence because it can simply start as just communication out to the neighborhood, and then emotion and conversation or dialogue back and forth can begin. We strongly encourage utilize the portal for your e-blast and communication and keep it business. Social media just is that for social and for outside the business.
Very good. One question was, can you just go over again about your comments earlier of agreeing with an owner and then having that become binding?
Absolutely. As a board member, and we had mentioned it also with the DNO, if you are out and you say, yes, I agree with that, no matter where you are, when you are in a board role and the membership knows you are a board of directors, imagine you have that hat on at all times. So no confirmation or discussion on applications or issues within the neighborhood need to be discussed. It's a business. And if you're out in anything social in the neighborhood, you want to keep it that way and just refer back to it is a board decision. We'll need to have that to the board. Please email the board or email your manager, depending on your process. If you say, yes, I agree, you have that board hat on and it can be considered a board decision.
All right, going back to the social media, what if a board member owns a Facebook page for the community? How can the other board members force that person to take down the page?
It would be a strong board discussion, and I would say get with your attorney on how to follow those processes. Many of your attorneys, especially in this industry who understand it, will strongly discourage having a web page for the association because it opens it up to who has control of that web page. I'll give you for instance, we had a board president who was in charge of a Facebook page. He was removed as the board, but he had complete control and access to that page and then changed authorization so no other board member could get on that and make any changes. And he began stating some things that were untrue. They had to get legal in, and it was a very costly process. Don't even open yourself up to that. That's our recommendation.
Thank you. May have time for one or two more here. One is just, you have a template for meeting minutes you can send for us to use as a point of reference.
Yes, we'll make sure that all our managers share that with their boards. We can definitely pull that information and send over a template for you.
Yeah, and I'd just say you can always connect with your property manager to
Yeah.
ask for any sort of templates for meeting minutes or other sort of things. One also was just printed paperwork for new board members in general, kind of like a guide.
Mhm. Yeah, we can gather that information and definitely get with the manager to ensure that all board members have the access into the portal as well as information that they may need to help get through being a new board member.
All right, thank you. Um, It is 1 o'clock, so I think we'll conclude today's presentation. If there was any additional questions that we could not get to today, please be sure to reach out to your property manager, or we'll try to reach out to you directly if you showed your name for your question.